Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture. This one's title is Google Making Us Stupid, Part 1 in Media Frame. This is based on the article Is Google Making Us Stupid by David Carr. As the late MIT computer scientist Joseph Weizenbaum observed, the conception of the world that emerged from the widespread use of timekeeping instruments remains an impoverished version of the older one, for it rests on a rejection of those direct experiences that form the basis for and indeed constituted the old reality. In deciding when to eat, to work, to sleep, to rise, we stopped listening to our senses and started obeying the clock. I wonder, I ask you, do you, through habit, eat, work, sleep, rise, etc. at prescribed times? And is this assisted or directed by things like a clock? And if so, what does that mean? Some more quotes. When the mechanical clock arrived, people began thinking of their brains as operating like clockwork. Today, in the age of software, we have come to think of them as operating like computers. But the changes neuroscience tell us go much deeper than metaphor. Thanks to our brain's plasticity, the adaptation occurs also at a biological level. The internet promises to have particularly far-reaching effects on cognition. For example, what metaphor do we use for the internet? It's usually quite popular. It's the web. So again, it's like we use these types of metaphors to think about things like clocks, software, and also it leaves a sort of a residue on each of us in terms of the way that we think and in terms of our cognition. When the net absorbs a medium, that medium is recreated in the net's image. It injects the medium's content with hyperlinks, blinking ads, and other digital gewgaws. Don't know what a gewgaw is, but it sounds great. And it surrounds the content with the content of all other media it is absorbed. A new email message, for instance, may announce its arrival as we're glancing over the latest headlines at a newspaper site. The result is to scatter our attention and diffuse our concentration. My question is, the internet obviously craves our attention. How do we cope? What do you do to prevent the scattering of your attention and diffusing of your concentration? It is really difficult these days. If you notice when you're online, go back and try to read something long. If you don't read long passages all the time, like in a book, I invite you to spend a couple of weeks reading online and then try to do that, and it changes the way that you read. The net's influence doesn't end at the edges of a computer screen either. As people's minds become attuned to the crazy quilt of internet media, traditional media have to adapt to the audience's new expectations. Television programs add text crawls and pop-up ads, and magazines and newspapers shorten their articles, introduce capsule summaries, and crowd their pages with easy-to-browse info snippets. From this, traditional media collapses into one interface. As I often say as a joke, all the world's a screen. What do old media do? I'd ask you. As you see from this article, they adapt to the audience's new expectations. So, for example, television becomes YouTube. A newspaper article becomes adopted online. A radio broadcast becomes like a podcast, and they become infused with all the various interactivity of the web, which is good and bad. Quoting Plato's Phaedrus, Socrates bemoaned the development of writing. He feared that, as people came to rely on the written word as a substitute for the knowledge they used to carry inside their heads, they would, in the words of one of the dialogue's characters, cease to exercise the memory and become forgetful. And because they were able to receive a quantity of information without proper instruction, they'd be thought very knowledgeable when they are for the most part quite ignorant. They'd be filled with the conceit of wisdom instead of real wisdom. I'd ask you this: is the internet just like a modern version of writing that we need to learn to adapt to? Are there any challenges or opportunities? The thing I fear is, as Socrates says, I think that people these days, the thing I often say is that more people know a thin layer of information than ever before. They'll see a headline and think they know the underlying story. I think there's a tendency to cease to exercise our memory and become forgetful because we know on Google or on our phones we have constant access to any information. What's the point of laboring to try to learn basic facts? Is Google Making Us Stupid, Part 1, a media frame. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.